Yeah, this song beautiful right here. Codecast, we're live. Phrase, R, M-Child, Celis, DS, Wells. You know, we're about to introduce you to something beautiful. You know, with us, you know, grind is a given. Either cooking something the chef or I'm spitting. Came from the bottom with nothing, the top chillin'. We do it for hood legends, those past are still living. With us, you know, grind is a given. Either cooking something the chef or I'm spitting. Came from the bottom with nothing, the top chillin'. We do it for hood legends, those past are still living. I'm trying to be well known.
Once again, grind is a given. All Shades Phrase featuring R. Brentwood RP. Let's go! This show was brought to you by Active Chiropractic Care, located in Comac, New York, and Aligned Posture leads for success to foster. Say the promo code SUPERSTAR15 and you will get a complimentary spinal examination that'll lead you on your journey for peak performance. This show was also brought to you by Long Island Fitness Experts Alliance. Get in contact with the Life Alliance trainer and you will be guaranteed to add life to your years. Personal trainer Dan Gilligan is highly accomplished in his field and isn't afraid to break the conventional norms of the industry. In this episode, Dan discusses his preference to percentage training, how squatting is crucial for athletic performance, and how he would go about training NBA All-Star Derrick Rose. Let's kick that good game, y'all. Okay, we are here with Dan Gilligan, certified personal trainer, and you're pursuing
Masters in Physical Education.
Masters in physical education. Wow, I'm stuttering on the words now already. That's not good. So how's it going, man? How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. So we're going to talk about numerous topics today regarding your experience with fitness and the fitness industry and everything. So just give us some insight in who you are in particular.
Who am I? In terms of fitness, I am someone who's been involved in fitness for quite some time. I started doing triathlons quite some time ago, about 5-6 years ago, maybe 2008. Did a lot of the endurance type training, the biking, swimming, running. So I got a base in that, and then I started moving towards more fitness type training, more weights, more gym type stuff. Got certified as a personal trainer.
Okay.
Started working in a strength and conditioning gym. So there I kind of got a background in kind of plyometric training, speed training, ladder training, running form training, high intensity type stuff, a little more powerlifting type training. So basically I have a very diverse background, a lot of different types of training methods, and I've taken some classes at Hofstra in exercise science, so
nice.
Just a wide umbrella.
Okay, nice. And with that, you have a lengthy experience when it seems to in terms of training and everything like that. So I noticed, just from knowing you, you do a lot of percentage training.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about your experiences with that and why do you think it's beneficial for an athlete or even an everyday person?
Well, what happens is you start off training and you probably start and have no idea what you're doing. So you start training and you just do a lot of things. I ran a lot. I would just run like 7 miles for no reason, no method to my madness.
Right.
I'd swim, I'd bike, I'd work out with friends. I would go to the gym and do stupid stuff like curls and God knows what I was doing, but nothing that made any sense.
Curls for 2 hours, pretty much.
Well, no, I never did that. But like the generic high school, college workout. You go in. You might do squats, you might do bench press, you might do curls, then you do core. The generic.
Got you.
I'm at the gym, so these are the logical steps that I take. I use all the machines.
Right.
So, and then you start to progress, and then you start to go, okay, so now I'm going to do splits. Okay, so now I do splits for a while, and then from splits you do full body, and then from full body you start to do different, I'll do 12 reps, and 8 reps, and 6 reps, and 4 reps, and start playing with that. So the natural progression is that eventually, after years and years and years and getting plateau after plateau, you start to do percentage training.
Okay.
So percentage training is simply the idea of logical, instead of going to the gym and saying I'm going to do 12 reps, it's actually going, I'm going to go to the gym and do 12 reps at the proper percentage so that it makes sense.
Okay.
So that's why it's logical. It gives you it gives you an idea if you follow the charts and follow the people who have set up the percentage training, and they have all different percentage, like, rate of exertion type charts.
Okay, just throw out a name in particular, names that you follow.
I don't know what the hell his name is. I got it here. I know what it is. I don't know how to... Prilpins. That's like the basis for like majority of my percentage training. And he's like, I think he was either like a Russian or he was like an Olympic lifter type guy.
Okay.
And so there's a million charts that people have taken. Basically, his very simple percentage chart, which is just this is the percentage, this is the rep range, this is the total volume, and that makes the most sense.
Okay.
So, basically what we're looking at is that it gives you an idea of, okay, so today I want to train for max strength. I want to get stronger.
Okay.
Then it gives you an idea of like, okay, so I'm going to train. That means I'm going to train between 85 and 95% of my max. And then you look up, if I train 85, how many reps should I do? What percentage should I do?
Right.
All percentages is just making sense of your training.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is that instead of going to the gym and going, I'm going to do 12 reps, and then you probably do either too little or too much weight, and then you do too many reps, you probably do like 4 sets of 12 for 48 reps. You probably do, 3 sets of 10 or less than that, and you do it at a higher percentage, something like 70%, so it's more weight than you usually would, but less reps, and you feel fresher, and you get a better workout.
Okay, so you're not a proponent for volume.
I'm a proponent for volume when it makes sense, but
Okay.
if you're going to do volume training, you can't go heavy. And a lot of people do volume training heavier than they should be doing it.
Okay.
Like, for example, at one point, I was playing around with Jim Wendler's 531.
Okay.
And I crafted this idea that I was going to do kind of his program, but I was going to throw in a hypertrophy thing where I was going to do 5 sets of 10 at 71%. So I was doing bench press and deadlifts. I was doing bench press squats at 185 pounds. And what resulted was I'm doing 185 pounds, 50 reps, okay? I weigh 150 pounds, 160 pounds.
Right.
It was killing me. It destroyed my hips. It destroyed my central nervous system. I was so dead. Like, I would go in, I would do 5 sets of 10 deadlifts, and for me, 70% was something around 260 or something, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
All I could do was those 5 sets of 10, and then I would be ready to just pass out and vomit.
Right.
So, I don't know what the original point to me saying this was, but, like, that's not smart. That was the point. That's not smart volume. That's stupid volume.
Right.
Like, I was doing way too much weight. If you're going to do volume training, it should be, in my opinion, because my opinion is that the weight room is to gain strength.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the weight room because there's weights there.
Right.
So you want to get stronger when you're in the weight room. You don't go to the weight room to do light weight. You could do that in your house.
Right.
So if you're in the weight room, the primary focus of your workout should be to be stronger. So you should base your workout around the 5 primary lifts, squats, deadlifts, bench press, shoulder press, maybe rows if you want to throw it in there. If I said chin-ups, it could be in there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to base it on doing those heavily, either, heavy weight, eccentrics, isometrics, something like that. And then you want to do at the end, in my opinion, high volume, specific muscle work.
Okay.
Like maybe you do glute bridges, to target that muscle. Or maybe you do bicep curls, that's fine.
So accessory work, pretty much.
Accessory work.
Okay.
That's at high volume, which means you're doing 15 to 20 reps, 2 to 3 sets, depending on, your time and what you want to do. And you're doing it at a really low weight.
Okay.
You're doing it at well below 50, probably 40 to 50% if you're pushing it, and
Right.
even lower is fine, because
Right.
the point is to isolate that muscle and activate it.
Right.
So that's how I see volume. Now, if you want to throw in workouts as a day, if you want to say one day a week, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do a volume workout,
Okay.
like a CrossFit style volume workout.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to train at a smart percentage. Because, that's the issue with CrossFit, right? They say we're going to do high volume, but they're also doing strength. You can't do volume and strength. You can only do one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose. So if I'm going to do volume and I'm going to do a volume workout, I'm going to do the row machine for 500 meters. Then I'm going to do squats at a very low percentage of my max, like lower than 40% probably for 10
Right.
to 15 reps.
Right.
Then I might do bench, and then but my percentages are going to be 40%, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower,
Right.
and then varying the rep range based on that.
Right.
And I'm going to make sure my form is good on volume. It's not good to just do volume with shit form.
No, I agree with that.
Like, if your form is not right, stop.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's like one day a week you say, my goal is to hammer my cardiovascular system. And
Right.
I'm going to go really lightweight. I don't care about my form. My goal is to just push my heart as hard as I possibly can. That's the only time, and I don't really believe in that, but
Yeah.
plenty of people probably do.
It's what you would allow under certain circumstances.
If it was like bodyweight squats, your form could suck on bodyweight squats.
Right.
Because it's bodyweight. You're probably not going to hurt yourself if you do it once a week, and you don't, let's say you have 10 bad reps,
Yeah.
Don't do 100 bad reps.
Yeah.
That's just, what is the point?
Right.
But...
Nice, man. Nice. So I just wanted to ask you, in regards to your your own training experience, what are your thoughts on the strength and conditioning coaches out there in universities and how they, because so many athletes are getting injured. I feel like nowadays athletes are more explosive, but the training isn't really productive for long-term success. I feel like you
got a couple of categories there, right? So you have your strength and conditioning coaches, and you have guys who are horrible, have no idea about strength and conditioning, and they might be at Alabama,
right?
But they were there since 1965,
right?
And they train like it's 1965. You
Right.
know, they got machines, they have bicep curls, bench press, stupid stuff.
Yeah.
That's one category. So those guys, what do you say? They don't know what they're doing. The athletes aren't going to get better. They're just putting their athletes at risk, but that's the university's fault for hiring them.
Right.
Then you got another category where you got your functional guys who are way too functional.
Mm-hmm.
They don't believe in loading. Everything is just corrective,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, okay, we're just going to work on form. But if you're an explosive athlete, you have to teeter between injury and strength. You have to push.
Right.
Because you're trying to be the best.
Right.
So if you're just doing functional, then you're useless as a strength and conditioning coach.
Right.
But then you have strength and conditioning coaches, which I think are the majority.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I think are the majority. And I don't know if it's a strong majority, but that are really good, really smart.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have the time.
Right.
The reality of the strength conditioning in colleges is that they get like 40 athletes for like 2 or 3 days a week max for a very short period of time, so they can't do what they want to do. They have to rush everybody through a very generic program. And a lot of the time they don't have the space to do what they have to do. They don't have the support from the university or the other coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I know guys who have like 3 coaches on every rack.
Yeah.
So that's like at a big time university. So they can do whatever the heck they want to do.
Right.
But, let's say Hofstra, he's got him and one other guy with 40 athletes, and you got the girls' field hockey team, and they can't do a squat with no body weight. So now, let's say you get them 3 days a week.
Yeah.
You don't get them in the summer. They take huge time lapses off during the season.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with them? So they run into that issue of like, I know what I want to do,
right,
but I don't have the ability to do it.
Right.
So what do I do? So what I see him doing at Hofstra, he's a very good coach, he's very smart. He knows more than me about this stuff, definitely. And he does a lot of, he mixes a lot of functional stuff with a little bit of weight training. Because they don't have the ability to load because the form isn't there.
Right.
So, if he's going to make them do like, I can't think of the name of the exercise. What's with the kettlebell? Kettlebell swings, like 2-handed kettlebell swings, just to get the hip, pattern down. That's kind of the move they're going to do instead of doing an RDL. Or they're going to, they can't put him on a squat rack and give them, a back squat. They have to do a goblet squat. There's no back squats in sport conditioning because there's not enough time to build up the form to do a back squat.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of issues that go with being a strength coach at a university that aren't under their control. So I think there are guys who know what to do, who know very well how to train an athlete, but they don't have the ability to do it.
Okay.
So you get a lot of different schools of thought, and the reality is that as long as the coach has reasons for what they're doing, they're not wrong.
Right.
A lot of people train, a lot of people work out, but they don't train. They don't have reasons for what they're doing.
Right.
But, most of these guys, I would assume, have reasons for what they're doing, which makes the program okay. But now what would they do if instead of having to do 40 athletes at a time, the whole football team, or 60 athletes, what would they do if they had one-on-one? It'd probably be very different.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's hard to judge them based on what goes on in the strength and conditioning setting. You know? What I see in the private strength and conditioning sports gyms is very good. They do a lot of smart stuff, but they have one-on-one ability.
Right.
So the speed classes, I think, are stupid. But the actual working out, I think, is very smart. The speed classes, to me, you know, I'm talking about ladder stuff, and I'm talking about plyometrics. And I feel like that's a lot of the show. That's a lot of the give the client what they want.
Right.
Because people want to come in and get beat down and sweat and compete and do cool things.
Right.
But I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Elaborate a little more.
I just don't think that you see the transition between ladder drills and a lot of this stuff and what happens on the field.
Right.
And I think a lot of it's good. I think a lot of the jumping's good, but they do too much. Like, you don't want to do 50 plyometrics before you're going to do a strength workout. It makes no sense.
Right.
You know? But I think what I see in the gym I work at is that I see the people getting in better shape, getting stronger, getting better. But I think it puts them at a slight risk, I would say slight risk of injury, because it's too much, too soon in terms of the plyometric workouts.
Right.
And but I think it's good. You know, a lot of it is reactive training, like taking off, landing, you know, stress shortening cycle, absorbing force, reapplying force. That's what, you know, the training is about in speed training. And I think on the whole it makes sense, but like I said, when you take it and you take it from one-on-one and you make it for a group, you don't get the personal attention, and you got one kid doing it perfect, one kid doing it horrible, you know, this kid, you know, so I always hate seeing that, because I'd rather slow it down and be like, everybody's going to do it with perfect form, or you're not going to do it. Because that's, you know, otherwise you're just kind of, you're basically watching them do it and going, I hope they don't get injured. I'm just going to pretend that's not happening.
Right, right.
That's not
that
really...
cringe-worthy moment.
Yeah, like, that's not really the right thing. It's kind of like, yo, your knees shouldn't be diving in every time you jump. Okay, are you going to stop the exercise or let them do 35 more plyometrics? You're going to let them do 35 more plyometrics and just say, watch your knees, they're diving in.
Right.
They're going to keep diving in.
Right.
Every single time.
Right.
And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So you kind of cross your fingers and hope nobody tears an ACL in your speed classes.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is not ideal.
No, absolutely not. I do want to ask you another question. If you had to train an athlete like Derrick Rose, who's, you know, and I'm just using him as an example, who's been injury prone for the last, 5 seasons or so?
Yeah.
How would you go about developing him?
Well, you're asking me the question because we've talked about it already.
Of course. Of course.
No, we've talked about this a lot, and we both agree that, first of all, I don't know what they're doing with Derrick Rose. They might be doing everything right. I honestly have no idea. Neither of us have any idea.
Right.
But, you know, a guy who has had, I mean, how many years has he been hurt? Almost 4 straight years now?
Yeah, just about.
And he had one serious injury, and then he's had meniscus injuries,
Yeah.
which is not, I mean, it's a bad injury, but it is not a serious knee injury.
Right.
It's a 2 to 3 month injury.
Right.
And this guy comes back, and there's no show that he understands, you know, that, well, what we talk about all the time is that he seems too loose. He seems too springy.
Yeah.
And that he needs to be tightened up and strengthened up.
Absolutely.
And, you know, he's not in control of his body.
Right.
And that's the majority of the reason his injuries are caused, and that might be the majority of the reason that he's a good player. But, you know, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. With I think the foundation has to be strength, you know, and using the proper muscles and understanding how to, you know, absorb and accelerate force. And you look at Derrick Rose, you know, maybe the training is right. I don't know, but on the court he does not know how to absorb and accelerate force. He's a train wreck. And, you know, it makes him both dynamic and injury prone. You know, that he's all over the place, but he's completely out of control. Russell Westbrook's another guy that's completely out of control. And then if you want to look at a counterpoint, look at Wade, who's had a lot of knee injuries, and look at LeBron, who are completely in control of their body at all times on the court. Like, perfect control of their body. You know, maybe, you know, for example, Wade has bad running form, but when you watch them jump or you watch them move, they're always in control. When you watch Westbrook or Rose move, they're completely out of control, which just, I don't know if it's a gym issue. They might be training properly, but, when they get on the court, that's just how they know how to play. But if you want to last in a sport, you have to be in control. You can't just be flying around the court like a lunatic.
Right.
And, look at Westbrook. I mean, the guy plays... He's exciting to watch because he plays that way, but you just watch him and you just cringe and go, when is he going to hurt himself?
Right.
Because he's completely out of control.
Right. Oh, it's true.
And we don't know what they're doing in the gym, but I know that a lot of these trainers at the professional level, well, like I said, there's the category that don't know what they're doing, which I assume Derrick Rose has somebody that knows. If he's not training with Tim Grover, I don't know why. I would have to look that up. Honestly, I don't know. And he's in Chicago.
That's
Tim
what I was
Grover's
say.
in Chicago.
Yeah.
Tim Grover is the best.
Yeah.
He should be training with Tim Grover. I haven't seen that connection. But if he's training with Tim Grover, let's make the assumption that he has a brain in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's doing the right stuff, and it's just maybe he just doesn't know how to play any other way.
Right.
But
would you take him on as a client?
Derrick Rose?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the credentials to do something like that. I'd love the challenge, but yeah, of course I would. Why not?
Nice.
But I mean, like,
right.
You never know. Tim Grover didn't know what the heck he was doing when he took on Jordan. He made it up,
right?
And he figured it out,
right?
And if I got into training professional basketball players, which of course everybody would like to do, I would just. I would try to just copy Tim Grover because he's
the example.
He's the guy. He's the godfather. He knows exactly. He set up the map, and that doesn't mean you copy him, but he's the best. That's who you got to look to. That's who you got to read and then figure out what he's doing with his athletes because he's the guy who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's amazing though when you look at like say Michael Jordan era time when you see Tim Grover training Jordan, it was basically more of a bodybuilding style.
Oh yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tim Grover didn't know what he was. He built sports conditioning. There was no athletes. Basketball players did not lift weights.
Yeah. When
Jordan started lifting.
Yeah.
Like Jordan went to Tim Grover and said, "Get me stronger."
Right.
And Tim Grover said, "All right," and he just
I do it the only way I know how.
And it worked. And then Tim Grover over the years, now he does really smart training, but the foundation is still strength.
Yeah.
That's the point. The correctives and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Are just accessory. It's just a part of the process.
Yeah.
But the foundation is strength. That's got to be the foundation.
Yeah. Now, do you believe when people say, like, Ron Artest, for example, or Meta World Peace, whatever he calls himself these days, he said, I think it's Meta World Peace, he said that Michael Jordan was stronger than LeBron James.
No.
Do you think that has something to do with that style of training, or do you think that's just natural strength?
I don't know if that's true.
Or do you think that was just more Michael Jordan, like,
I'm not going to say Michael Jordan's not very strong. I mean, he was. I mean, look at him on the court. The guy was incredibly strong. Yeah. But LeBron James is an animal. I mean, there's professional athletes who try to foul him on a fast break as hard as they can.
Yeah.
And they can't even bother him.
Yeah.
So maybe Jordan's stronger, but they're both incredibly strong.
Right.
LeBron's not strong, but
right.
I would assume LeBron's stronger just because he's bigger, but Jordan was big too. So I don't know, but it's not like LeBron isn't strong. He's an animal.
What about Wilt Chamberlain and Shaq? Now everybody says Wilt Chamberlain's the strongest guy ever.
I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
I've seen nothing of Wilt Chamberlain. Shaq wasn't strong. He was just big. I mean, the guy wasn't in shape.
Oh, yeah.
But
definitely.
he weighed, he's the biggest human being in the planet.
Right.
So what are you going to do with him? Like, it's like when you're playing basketball with, like, your heavy uncle. Like, what do you do?
Right.
Like, he's just going to beat you up.
Right. And Shaq.
He's not better than you. He's just bigger. And Shaq was great.
Yeah, he was explosive, too.
Shaq was a great player, but his size was not a product of weight training. It was a product of mass.
Right.
And what are you going to do when the guy is just substantially bigger than you? It's just...
Yeah.
It's you playing against a child. What are you going to do?
Right. No, that's
Nothing.
true. It's true.
You're going to just try to hack him. Hope he misses free throws.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. So in terms of your training practices, what would you... All right, give me a workout. What's your normal workout regimen, during the week?
I don't know. Right now I'm lost.
Okay.
Right now I'm like, I've lost motivation. I've lost path.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't know. I can't think of anything new to do. But it's also just, it becomes,
Redundant?
working out becomes tedious.
Yeah.
You know, when you don't have goals, you know, it becomes difficult to, you know, the first question you ask if you're training someone, and any trainer knows this, is what's your goal?
Yeah.
You know, so if you don't have a goal, how do you figure out a program?
Right.
You know, and I haven't had a goal in fitness for a while because in my mind, and it's an arrogant perspective, you know, I can run any race, I can do anything, you know, like, you know, you get to a point in fitness where you just feel like you're there, you know.
Yeah.
My only goals in terms of the gym that I could make up would be to lift more weight.
Right.
So that's kind of been my focus these days, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I could call on a program I did recently which kind of molded how I've been training for a while, which is the triphasic training we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really great stuff.
Okay, and just clarify,
Yeah, I'll talk to it. So triphasic training, you know, is very simple stuff. It's the idea that you have 3 days in a week, right? You train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And this is a strength and conditioning training program, you know, designed for athletes.
Right.
You know, the idea that you have 3 workouts, Friday's your last, you have the weekend off.
Mm-hmm.
So Monday's going to be your triphasic day. What that means, you know, triphasic is talking about the 3 phases of any lift. So you have your eccentric, your concentric, and your isometric. So what we're talking about is a strength shortening cycle. You know, the start of a strength shortening cycle, and this includes everything. This is your jumping, this is your squats, this is what I was talking about earlier, absorbing and accelerating force. So your eccentric is the absorbing of the force. So eccentric is where you pattern a movement. You know, you might have heard of like neural patterning or you know, movement patterning, things like that. So neural grooving is the word I was looking for. Where you're patterning the movement with the proper muscles. Mm-hmm. So when you focus on the eccentric, which is the first 3 weeks of a triphasic program, you're focusing on building the muscles you need for the movement, building the correct movement, and absorption of force. So you're going to put a heavy load on you, and you're going to slowly do eccentrics, negatives, whatever you want to call them. And you're going to do that for 3 weeks. Then you're going to focus on the isometric, which is the split second in between the eccentric and the concentric. So if you're doing a vertical jump, the going down fast is your eccentric. Mm-hmm. The stop that you won't even notice in a vertical jump is your isometric. And then the reshift into a concentric, you know, is obviously your concentric, the second half. So isometric, you're going to do holds where you're going to get to the bottom of a squat or a bench press. You do it with basically those 2 lifts. You could also do it with chin-ups. You could probably do it with a lot of different things, but those are the basics. Chin-ups, bench, or squats. And so isometric, you're going to hold the hold, you know, at the bottom of a squat. Not sitting at the bottom, but resisting at like 90 degrees basically. You know, and then the third phase is going to be concentric, which I've kind of been confused with. It's hard to do if you don't have the proper, like you might see those machines where you got to throw the bar off your chest. Mm-hmm. That would probably work better, although I just don't think concentric works that well in reality. It's a good idea. Yeah. But so concentric, you know, isometric, you're going to have heavy load, stop at the bottom, pause for like 3, 4, 5 seconds. Then concentric, you're going to do a really light load and just practice on being as fast through the entire motion. It's like a vertical jump, basically. Mm-hmm. Just you're going to do it with weights. So it's difficult. And I don't know if it works that well in real life. But the idea makes sense. So what you're doing is you're working on all 3 phases of the movement, triphasic, in order to better the entire movement. So then that's your Monday. Your Monday is your triphasic. 3 weeks of eccentric, 3 weeks of isometric, 3 weeks of concentric. Then you do your Wednesday, which is your strength day. So now Wednesday you're going to do, you could either do the same lifts, your squats and your bench press, or you could do other lifts, your deadlift, your shoulder press, and you're going to go heavy for lower reps, and you're going to progress for 3 weeks, you know, and then switch it up. So you got your triphasic day, you got your max strength day, and your third day is your volume day. This is kind of a mix between your generic volume day and like a true Prilpan's, you know, rate of exertion type day. Mm-hmm. So you're going to do basically, you're going to do like 6 to 8 reps at a lower weight, and it's going to feel pretty easy, but it makes some sense, and it's more for recovery. So you're going to do a lot of reps, a lot of volume, they would say, and then you're going to have the 2 weekend days off, and then you're going to repeat. And I think it's a great way to train. And so, since I've been doing that, I've been kind of playing off that model where I have Monday is kind of like a experimental, exercise day. Wednesday is a strength day. Friday is a volume day.
Okay.
So that's been the way I've been programming for probably, I don't know, a while now, a couple months now.
Okay.
3-4 months. So, like lately, I stopped doing triphasic, or I'm still doing a little triphasic, I guess, because I've been doing like chin-up eccentrics and chin-up isometrics. But I've been doing rack pulls, rack pulls?
Yeah.
So, like an elevated deadlift, just to focus on like a part of a different movement. And I also, I started doing on Mondays, because the triphasic is always like push exercises.
Okay.
So I started trying to do some pull stuff. That's why I've been doing chin-ups and I've been doing deadlifts. And then my Wednesdays are the same, just a strength day. And, Fridays are just volume day, just playing off the different percentages. And it's kind of been loose like that for a while. But, and then obviously included in all those days is just different accessory stuff, depending on what you want to do. It could really be anything, just as long as you have a reason for doing it.
Right.
But yeah, so that's been the generic way I've been modeling my workouts for quite some time now.
Okay. I have 2 points, and then we're going to wrap it up.
All
right. First point. You healed from an injury.
Yeah.
How'd you go about that?
Well, now I hurt my back. It was about 2 Fridays ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, how long has it been? No, it's like a week and a half. But it's almost at full strength. And so the thing is, like, when you hurt yourself, right? So you focus on rest, recovery. Most people just lay in place. This card is broken. Just lay in place and don't want to do anything. They want to I'm going to stay in place, let it stiffen up, use ice, use heat, use Advil, and it's going to magically get better somehow by just sitting there and doing nothing.
Right.
So the approach that I've taken, and the approach I think you have to take, and this is nothing crazy, plenty of articles have been written on this, is that instead of resting, you got to mobilize whatever's injured immediately. So you hurt your back, get in the gym and start doing back extensions. Start doing, high kick type stuff, where you're extending your knee out with your your hips in flexion, your knees in extension, trying to get that extension through the hip and trying to loosen everything up. Extend your hip, flex your knee, extend your knee. Do all these different exercises so that you can get your hamstring and hips working together and get your lower back working with your hips and your hamstrings. And the goal is just like any type of linear periodization type exercise. It's to progress. So day one, you're going to have no mobility, no range of motion, and it's going to be terrible. It's going to hurt a little bit, but just push it till it hurts, and then go from there. And understand that's where you're at. Day two, progress, and that's the replacement for the idea of rest, ice, compress, elevate, because that doesn't make any sense. And if you see Kelly Starrett and his videos, he does a lot of stuff on kind of the new idea of how to heal injuries, and how what you really got to do is you got to get blood, you got to use the body, and any basics understanding of ex-phys, you understand that when something gets injured, it's probably a muscle strain. It might be, if it's something severe, it's something severe, but it's usually a muscle strain, and that means that your body's going to send a whole ton of blood and junk and waste into that area. What you got to do is you got to move it out of that area. And so the point of what I'm saying, and what you should take away from this little clip here, is that don't rest, mobilize, and keep yourself moving. Because once you rest, it's going to lock up, and that's not what you need. Smart exercise will be better than just resting.
Okay. Now I wanted to ask you before, how would you go about training a bodybuilder?
So, bodybuilders are kind of out of my scope of practice. I'm very much a functional training type person, very into working on mobility and strength through a range of motion, and working on correctives and working on weaknesses and imbalances. Bodybuilding, I guess, to some degree works on imbalances in that, you're working on muscle size imbalances.
But on the whole, it's really just a muscle hypertrophy type thing. So you're just making your muscles bigger. You're not really worried about range of motion, although if you're smart, you are. So for me, it would be kind of hard to train a bodybuilder. But that said, I think I would try to use an approach that would make sense to me, which would kind of be a strength-based approach around the primary lifts, your squats, deadlifts, bench press, pull-ups. And then I would load up the accessory and try to kill them with tons of accessory work at the end of the workouts. And, so maybe a workout would just be simple. It would just be simple, 5x5 squats and deadlifts or something. And then you would kill them on accessory, like 4 to 5 accessory workouts, 10 to 15 reps, 2 to 3 sets, and just, really nail in on whatever the practice of that day is. But I would kind of approach it with build strength and size with the big lifts, and also then target certain areas at the end of the workout. So it wouldn't look that different from what I do currently, except that the accessory would be more important.
Okay, I like
more
that.
Focus.
I like that. And I do want to ask you also, in terms of squatting, what are proper techniques for squatting? Because I would say there's that I've seen, 95% of people, I'm just using a broad number, squatting correctly.
Well, this is something we've talked about before, and this is the idea that basically the majority of people don't know how to squat, don't know how to do a squat pattern. And what that means is not that they don't know how to squat down. Everybody knows how to squat down. If you say somebody squat, they'll squat. But the vast majority of people will use the wrong muscles. So what you'll see, and I'm sure most people know this, is no shock, especially in younger people, high school, middle school athletes. You're going to see them up on their toes, very anteriorly dominant, not getting their posterior chain involved. If you tell them to put their weight through their heels, they'll probably fall. So basically the thing I've been focusing on is this idea that, how can an athlete be on a field if they don't know how to squat properly? So the entirety of an athletic event, as long as, maybe golf you could play, but, if you're playing basketball, soccer, football, anything, hockey, even baseball, everything you do is about accelerating, decelerating, and then re-accelerating force. That's everything you do in basketball, football. That's what a cut is. That's what all this stuff is. So if you don't know how to properly accelerate and decelerate force through a squat pattern, which by that I mean, taking the weight and putting it into your hamstrings and your posterior chain and then exploding up through your anterior chain, how are you going to do that repetitively on a football field and not hurt yourself? So what we have right now is we have way too many athletes on fields with no idea how to use their legs or their bodies at all, and we have excessive high rates of knee injuries. We have very high rates of back injuries, and especially young men. Women especially, their ACL injuries are very high because they have no idea how to use their posterior chain. So basically what you need to do, and what we need to do as trainers, is kind of focus our attention on the hip hinge pattern and getting them to understand how to use their hips and how to then use their hamstrings, and using correctives and using just lots of squats is very important. And the other thing with the squats is that most people when they squat, they start off with a back squat, and back squat is the hardest form of a squat. Right, so you should start with, a bodyweight squat. You should start with a box squat. You should start with, a goblet squat, and you go to a front squat, and you go to all these things before you get to a back squat. Personally, I don't even back squat because, I don't back squat because I like front squats better, honestly, just because I think it locks in your core and your lats better. But to me, back squatting is for when you've got your form perfect and now you're trying to put a lot of weight on the bar. So someone who can't do the proper form, a back squat shouldn't even be in their realm of thought process.
Right.
So, understanding that a little bit better and teaching people how to squat properly. It's not just up and down. Your knees have to go out to allow your hips to go down and things of that nature. And I just think the squat is the most important exercise you can teach an athlete
just because the squat is the stress shortening cycle. The squat is the basis of all type of change of direction sports, which is what most athletes you're going to deal with is change of direction sports. So, yeah, that's kind of my spiel on that.
I love it. Last thing here. What is your definition of a visionary?
A visionary? That's an interesting question. A visionary is someone who sees things that other people don't see and is okay with expressing those thoughts. So, to be a visionary, that's kind of a tough one. Is a visionary someone like a Bill Gates? That's a visionary. That's someone who's brilliant, who comes up with, ideas that no one else can think of, and he becomes a multi-billionaire. But on a lesser scale, I think that a visionary can be someone who is observant and who is willing to think and be ahead of what other people say and not just follow what other people are doing. So I think in a broader context, very few of us are going to be Bill Gates or, the Apple guy. I can't think of his name.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Right.
Very few of us are going to be them.
Right.
There's like 10 of those on planet Earth right now.
Right.
So on a broader sense, to be a visionary is to be someone who's not afraid to express your opinions freely. And I think that's very important because, and I'll go to a broader issue here in fitness, and this is something that I aggravates the living hell out of me in fitness. Everything in fitness is negative. Everybody's negative when they're talking fitness. If you read a fitness article, go on T-Nation, go on any video at Spartan Race, they'll open up the video or open up the article with, your squat sucks and this is why. Or, if you're not stretching after your workout, you're an idiot. Why are we telling people things like that?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that fitness needs to become much more positive and much more willing to understand that you can learn something from anybody. And, we all get really arrogant and really like, I'm an expert trainer. I know everything. No one can help me, But that 80-year-old guy who walks by and just says something, he might give you some insight that you never thought of. Right. So the idea that, you have to be open to listening to everybody's opinion, no matter who it is, and then do what you want with that opinion. Most of them you just discard, but, be open to others' opinions and, back to the visionary idea, just be willing to have your own opinions, have your own thoughts, try your own ideas. And don't just be like, I have to do this because this is the way everybody does it. Try different things. And listen to different people and form your own opinions.
Wow. Dan, thank you.
You got it, Arjun.
Any information you want to leave with us so people can reach you?
Sure. If you want to send me an email, my email address will be in the info bar, I assume, on this video.
Yes.
I could spell it out real quick, but it'll probably be easier for you to just look down there.
Yeah, just click the link.
But yeah, I'm very willing to discuss anything, talk about anything, and I think we're going to try to do some more videos, some more live action videos in the future. So.
Absolutely. Dan, take care, brother.
You got it.
It's coming round back to the East Coast.
Yo, inspired by the music, got the world on my shoulder since a lad with a pad and a pen in his holster. Ride a rhyme, kill a track, ride a rhyme again, kill another track, it's done, time again. Stars got lyrics, I'm not a living legend, not yet, but I'm close, just give me a couple seconds. Then you'll be screaming, y'all want that old star. This upgrade upstart is so avant-garde. Won't sing in this position cause this style is different. Play close attention to the rhymes that I'm kicking. Rhymes that I kick though I always flip. Some will learn the martial law each time I spit a rhyme. Been doing this here since '96 to shine. Brighter than a solar flare, I am rare. With the visions of the mission that is really coming near. Got a feeling that it's building up like krillin in a spare. When the feeling something thrilling and only for the spare. I'm TM with 3 eyes, take a flight in the air. With my fingers on my temple and my vision so clear. Though I can't beat sell, I can make them feel fair. Hands shaped like a diamond, unmatched but so rare. Foreign league, it's all year, we in here, what? Yo, most cats respect, most cats gon' hate. Want me to acknowledge them, man, y'all gon' wait.